Ladies and gentlemen, if I could have your attention, I'll call this meeting of the County Commissioners to order. If we could all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And we could remain standing for just a moment. First of all, we recognize that today is the ceremony, funeral for our former President President Carter, who died at the age of 100. And then keep a terrible thing in Los Angeles, out in Southern California, with a loss of well over 2,000 homes today because of those fires and high winds and destroying, last I heard, at least over 2,000 homes. If we could keep all these poor souls in our prayers. Thank you very much. Have a meeting announcement. Today is a legislative day. Time is allotted at the end of each meeting for the commissioners to receive comments from the public. Got a couple public notices here to read. It's a County Commissioners of Kent County, Maryland, Code Home Rule Bill number 10-2024, introduced by Ronald H. Fithian, President of the Board of County Commissioners of Kent County, Maryland. An act to amend the public local laws of Kent County, Maryland by revising Chapter 73, entitled Building Construction, Chapter 192, Housing Standards, and Chapter 210, in order to create a new board in Kent County, Maryland, specifically the Construction Trades Board, which will incorporate the existing Board of Electrical Examiners and its members, while adding additional members to represent other trades and industry sectors, and to provide membership for the Board of Building Appeals as may be needed when an appeal is filed pursuant to the International Building Code. And that's introduced and read first time on December the 17th, 2024, ordered, posted, and a public hearing scheduled for February the 4th, 2025 at 6 p.m. in the County Commissioners Hearing Room, Mark Clayton Mitchell Jr., Kent County Government Center, 400 High Street, Chestertown, Maryland. By order of Sandra M. Blackston, clerk. Having been posted, and notice of time and place of hearing and copies having been made available to the public and the press, a public hearing was held will be held on February 4th. So the reported favorably with or without amendments, read a second time, and ordered to be considered on February the 18th, the legislative session day. Next, we have an alcoholic beverage license. A public hearing is scheduled for January the 28th, 2025 at 10 p.m. Let me pull this up here.
10 a.m.
What's that, John? 10 a.m., right. Its application has been made. Valerie Ashmore, member, representing Rock Hall Brewing Company, LLC, for a Class D beer, wine, and liquor license on the premises known as Rock Hall Brewing Company, 5781 Main Street, Rock Hall, Maryland, 21661, which shall authorize the holder thereof to keep for sale and to sell beer, wine, and liquor at the place therein described for on premises consumption or elsewhere. A hearing on the application will be held in the County Commissioners' Hearing Room, R. Clayton Mitchell Jr., Government Center, 400 High Street, Chestertown, Maryland, on January the 28th, 2025 at 10 a.m., at which time any exceptions to the application will be heard. It's by order of the Board of Licensed Commissioners for Kent County, Maryland, Sandra M. Blackston, Clerk/Kate Manager. It was published in the Kent County News on January the 9th, 2025, and then January the 16th on 2025. Then we have some consent items. We actually have 9 of them. We have regular session minutes dated December the 17th, 2024. We have liquor minutes dated December the 17th, 2024. We have closed session minutes dated December the 17th, 2024. C. Henry Price II, American Legion Post 246, for a raffle only dated January the 10th through December the 12th, 2025. Mr. Bill Mackey is Director of Planning, Housing, and Zoning, requests to release letter of credit number 166 entitled Landscaping at Chester River Yacht Country Club Parking Lot, their expansion project. Also, Mr. Bill Mackey, Director of Planning, Housing, and Zoning, has a request to release letter of credit number 714 entitled Landscaping, Prestwick, Kent. Jill Coleman, Director of Parks and Recreation, Carrie Klein, Deputy Director of Public Works, renaming the ball fields at Wharton Park. Dan Matson, Director of Public Works, American Rescue Plan Act funds, Wharton Wastewater Plant, dewatering equipment, change order number 1, and Thomas N. Yeager, County Attorney, certificate of satisfaction. Do I have any questions, gentlemen? Then if I have no questions, I entertain a motion.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve all 9 of the consent items as presented.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. Next up, we have an administrative hearing with Tom. I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is a continuation of a hearing that we had on December 3rd. If the parties in interest could come forward in regard to Maggie's Coleman Tavern. So we have the inspector and the licensee could come forward too. And Commissioners, as you may recall, the establishment is in violation of its liquor license because it does not have a current trader's license. It does not have a trader's license because it's had some issues with the comptroller, which the licensee was actively working to resolve. At the last hearing, we estimated that it would take about another month to get those issues resolved. And if those issues were resolved before today, we would cancel the hearing and no action would be taken. It's my understanding, and we'll call on the inspector for additional information, but it's my understanding that the licensee has been actively working to resolve the issues, but so far they have not been resolved. So I would suggest first we hear from the inspector, and then if necessary, we can hear from the licensee. Okay.
Good afternoon.
You want to?
Oh,
Do you solemnly swear and affirm under the penalties of perjury that the testimony that you're about to give is true and correct to the best of your knowledge, information, and belief?
I do.
Okay.
Good afternoon. I'm Inspector Pearsall with Kent Alcohol and Tobacco Enforcement. Mrs. Jones, seated to my left here, she has been receiving some assistance through the Economic and Tourism Office, helping her navigate through the computer system to get this resolved, which they're a lot further than they were. They did file some stuff through the computer, which took, 2 hours?
Closer to 3, I'm afraid.
Yeah, the computer just kept kicking them out. They had to keep going back in and trying to get this resolved. So she is working on getting this resolved. It's just taking some time.
Okay, Inspector Pearsall, is it your opinion that the licensee is doing everything she can and is working diligently and making good faith attempts to resolve the situation?
Yes.
I would imagine holidays and stuff have a lot to do with some of it. Hopefully, that's part of it on the state side anyhow. Because I don't know how much is getting done.
Well,
That wouldn't surprise me.
unfortunately, it's not user-friendly, the computer system for the state.
Can't imagine that.
No.
It's
And-
not, it was sad. It kept, we would get so far, and then we'd have to look for more information, then it would just kick them out. And I
How close do you think you are?
thank God for Rose, because she has the patience of Job. I wouldn't have been that good.
I've been there economic development. Rose Wallace, I imagine she's talking about.
Yeah, Rose Osborne, yes.
Do you have an estimate as to how long do you think it would take to get the situation resolved? Again, I'm somewhat familiar. I was at a presentation that the comptroller gave to the county attorneys last year, and I was a bit surprised that she was saying a lot of their computer systems go back to the 1990s.
Oh, I'm sure.
And so that's one of the comptroller's goals, is to get all that upgraded. So the comptroller herself has acknowledged to the attorneys that the computer systems are in need of upgrading. So do you have an estimate is, what you think it would
Well,
take to
we,
get this
we
done?
filed 24 and 25. And we went back to 23 to make sure that was okay for the personal property tax. And we're waiting for a clearance letter from the comptroller. And Rose called someone that she knew that would hope speed up the process, but he wasn't available. And when we get all that straight, we'll go back and file for our articles of revival.
What my suggestion would be is that we continue this matter again for 60 days. Just given the hoops that you have and the documents that have to be filed, and that we come back in early March. If it is resolved before then, and you can provide proof to the inspector, my recommendation would be that we just dismiss the matter. Again, that's up to you. If it's not resolved, then we come back for another administrative hearing. But my suggestion would be is we do that roughly 45 to 60 days, perhaps the first meeting in March, something around that timetable.
Hopefully it'll be done before then. I have all the paperwork that we did. I mean, it's unbelievable what you have to go through. But if I may say something, and she can testify to this, December the 15th, I had shingles, and I still have them. And that really debilitated me a little bit. But I have other people that could have helped me, but to get somebody to help you do it.
It doesn't even seem like, and I think their economic development group does a fantastic job. And
They
if
do.
they're working on it and struggling with trying to get it, and obviously, you're making every effort. So personally, I think Tom's recommendation is fine. That's me.
I appreciate that.
It's
I don't want to have to go to 301 West Preston Street, telling you.
It's pretty clear that you've made a very sincere effort to try to straighten this out, and that there are a lot of technical issues with the current system. And I think what Tom has recommended, and I agree with Commissioner Fithian, that we need to extend this public hearing, if needed, until sometime the 1st of March or thereabout.
Hopefully we won't need it.
And hopefully you can resolve it and
We will, I hope
get
to.
it going.
It's just a matter of just hearing back from the state, which, who knows?
So is that
That is a motion.
The first
Go ahead.
meeting in March is March 4th.
Okay.
So
Remind
the
me of
motion
that.
will be to extend this hearing until March 4th to give the licensee a chance to work with the comptroller's office to straighten everything out.
Thank you very much.
Got a
Thank you.
motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. Thanks a
And I
lot.
have
Thank
nothing
you.
but nice to say about your economic. I did not know, I didn't realize they help people do that, and she said they do help a lot of business owners.
Very good.
So it's a plus for the county, as far as I'm
Sure.
concerned.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Thank you.
much.
On the agenda, we had a public hearing, which has been postponed. And next up is Mr. Bill Mackey.
Mr.
Or
President,
Carla,
Mr.
I'm
President,
sorry.
regarding the postponed public hearing, do we have a potential date that has been,
I don't know that
All
we have
about-
identified one yet.
Carla, are you filling in for Mr. Mackey?
Yes.
Okay. Do you know the answer to John's question as to when that public hearing has been rescheduled for, or has it?
No, I think that would be up to the commissioner's office
Oh,
to,
okay.
Between absences of critical staff members,
I got
the
you.
people that need to coordinate on that have not been in the office at the same time. So,
so I'm assuming that we will announce this at a preview,
absolutely.
A future
It'll be-
meeting.
It'll be re-advertised,
and then
et cetera.
re-advertise it, and
Right.
so everyone will know.
Right.
Very good.
so
Carla?
well, I think this is also technically a public hearing,
Correct.
so.
Correct, so we should, let's,
I'd like to make a
Wildlife.
motion to open the public hearing for the proposed granting of growth allocation.
and I will go ahead and read the notice of the public hearing.
Wait a minute, got a motion and a second. Second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. And I'll just read it for the audience. It said, public hearing and consideration of an amended resolution granting growth allocation to one additional area that was redesignated on the comprehensive rezoning updates new zoning map with a new critical area designation that comprises 3.139 acres of new marine zoned area. Okay, Tom.
And I'll just note for the record that the notice of the public hearing, which was originally scheduled for Tuesday, January 7th at 6 PM, was published in the Kent County News on December 26th. That obviously was a weather event day, and I would note for the record that the County Commissioner's Office has made diligent efforts and the best efforts possible under the circumstances to alert the public through multiple channels and sources that the meeting that was and the hearing that was set for January 7th was moved to January 9th at 1 PM. You may proceed.
So as we were sort of finalizing our submission to the Critical Area Commission for the growth allocation resolution that you reviewed back in December, we came across one additional area that we had neglected to include in that resolution. In fact, it's probably one of the first rezoning requests that we received, before we even started the process. It just kind of slipped our mind, and we found it as we were reviewing the maps. This is for the lands that are owned by, is it Haven Harbor South now? So it was Sailing Emporium. I'm not sure what the LLC technically is at this point, but over time, they've acquired additional properties that they want to include into the marina that they already own and operate. The request is consistent with the growth allocation policy. We have reviewed it for potential impacts on habitat and other resources and find that, like I said, it is consistent with our policy. So we're just asking that you amend the resolution that was approved back in December, and we will then submit to the Critical Area Commission for their final review.
We good, Tom? Anything else?
I don't think so. This technically is a public hearing, so what I would suggest is after you're out of the public hearing, then you make a motion. After the public hearing is closed, you make a motion consistent with what Mrs. Gerber has recommended. But certainly, this is very administrative and
Right.
ministerial in nature, given the situation.
I guess I would ask anyone in the public that would like to comment for or against this application or during this public hearing, feel free to do so at this time. And I see no one interested, so we need a motion to go out of public hearing.
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing for the proposed granting of growth allocation.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. We are out of, the public hearing is over. We're back in open session. Now you want to make a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to adopt amended resolution 2024-14 to grant 63.4 acres of growth allocation for the reference areas of the new zoning map.
Got a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, all opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Now we have, next up is a department requests and updates is Mr. Roland Shepard, Acting Director of Operations, and Steve Wallace, Captain of Kent County Detention Center, to talk about University of Maryland Medical Center Agreement. Welcome, Mr. Wallace.
Director Shepard is at another meeting, so I'll field just myself.
That's
Good
fine.
afternoon, everybody, of course. I was coming today to see if we could sign the service agreement for University of Maryland and Kent County Detention Center, which they will provide counseling, medication assistant treatment, counseling, and methadone to the detention center at no cost to the county. It's through the performance enhancement grant that we got for 2025. What happens is, last year we had 7 personnel that were on methadone, and instead of, we used to have to ride to Easton or Cecil County with a lockbox and a nurse and get 2 weeks worth of methadone, which was time consuming and costly, and because you pulled somebody out of the facility plus the nurse. Now, University of Maryland will either get it the same day or next day. If we have a patient that's on methadone, they'll deliver right to the facility. So it's a good thing, and the grant fund will pay for everything for this aspect as well. I'm assuming you have a copy of the service agreement. If you go to page 8 where it says Exhibit A, which I just found out about a half hour prior to coming here, the fees for professional service, which was $1,460.68 a month, times 12 would be $17,552. We're not going to be charged that. They're going to amend this and send you another copy of page 8, Exhibit A, because the professional service, they're already billing us for the counseling piece, so they don't want to charge us professional service twice. So that's $17,552 that we can allocate for something else, which is a good thing for us with the grant money. So
Did you
they're
say
going
they're
to
going
send
to send
us.
us a revised contract?
Yes. So I don't know if you want to, defer signing until we get the actual.
Yeah,
Is there a problem with deferring the signature? We don't have another meeting until January 28th.
I mean, I would.
is the signature page separate from
Correct.
the rest of the contract?
It is.
So what we could do is sign that, authorize the signature, but not release it until we get the revised contract where it's all together.
Yeah, they sent it to legal right before I came down here, so.
Right. So the commissioners could sign it, but it's with the understanding that it's not going to be released and delivered to the other party until such time we get the revised contract, so everything's
Correct.
together.
That would make sense.
Which, that's pretty much the long and short of it. We got a contract with the University of Maryland right now. They do the telemedicine. They provide the Subutech, but this way they'll provide the methadone as well, which seems to be going smoothly.
So the hospital will actually send somebody here to administer that, or
Well,
you?
they'll deliver it. They'll have a carrier that drops it right off at the facility. Nurse signs for it, logs it in the medication log, and then they'll administer it. They usually bring a week worth or 2 weeks worth each time for the patient. So we had 7 people last year total, but we've seen an increase in people coming in that are on methadone, which to us, it's cheaper, and it's diversion is less likely to happen because it's mostly liquid form. So once they dump it in, it's pretty much gone.
I got you.
Instead of the pill form.
It's less of a burden on staff because you don't have
Correct.
the transportation issues.
Yeah. Yeah,
Any questions, gentlemen?
but
Is this agreement from January to January, or is it from January to July?
It's to June 30th
June
For
30th?
this fiscal year.
fiscal year, yes.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the agreement between the University of Maryland Medical Center and the Kent County Detention Center for the Medication Assistant Treatment Program, contingent upon us receiving a revised copy as presented here today.
Got a motion, do I have a second? Second. Motion and a second, all in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, the ayes have it. Thank you, Mr. Wallace.
And I'll get that to you as soon as we receive it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Ms. Jamie Williams, Director, Economic Tourism Development, to speak about Avail Enclosure Systems Manufacturing Expansion Project.
Okay. Good afternoon.
How are you?
Good.
Good.
So Avail is currently located in Millington on the Queen Anne's County side, and they were founded in 1989 as Power Electronics, and they were acquired in 2016, which led to the formation of Avail Enclosure Systems. I won't read all of this. Some of this is in your packet, and I do have a hard time explaining what they do, but here's a short description. The enclosure systems control transmission and distribution of power to a utility substation, to include electricity, offshore wind, fiber, etc. The facility located on Millington Road, the old Infinity Building, is what they are looking at to expand into off of 301. It'll allow them to move some of their smaller jobs and control panels to that facility to make additional room at the current facility to meet the demand. Commerce is offering a $200,000 MEDAF conditional loan, and it becomes a grant if all the conditions are met over a period of time, and that's a 10-year period. It does require a 10% county match, and it is to create 45 new jobs in Kent County. But in addition to that, there's the capital investment as well for making the improvements to the current Infinity building where they will be locating. They will maintain the 117 jobs in Queen Anne's, and the 45 new jobs would be created in Kent, and they have until December 17th, 2027 to meet that requirement. The letter of intent is not binding. It's proposed state and county assistance for the project. Loan documents from Commerce will need to be prepared and executed if everyone's in agreement. The funding can be approved in the FY26 budget because it will take some time for all of the legal paperwork to be done. I've met with the Office of Finance, and we addressed documentation of meeting the outlined conditions under the MEDAF program. And Commerce does require the business to fill out an annual report for capital investment as well as jobs created. And then Commerce verifies those jobs through the Maryland Department of Labor. In the event of a default, the state does notify the county so that we know that they're, not meeting the requirements. I've also spoken to Commerce about putting that language in writing as part of the loan documents. So we're looking for approval and signature of the letter of intent if the commissioners are in agreement.
So the plus to this is obviously we're creating 45 new jobs, plus we're using a vacant building that was once a recycling facility that's out of business now, right?
Correct.
So we're making use of that and providing 45 new jobs, available jobs.
Yes, and the capital investment into that building, I'm not going to say it's not in terrible shape, but it's not in great shape either. And I can't remember the exact amount. I'm sure it's in here somewhere. But it's like at least $2 to $3 million they'll be investing in equipment and improvements to the building.
Well, if our jobs as county commissioners is to grow the economy and try to provide decent paying jobs for some of our constituents, that's about as cheap of an investment as you'll ever come up with. To me, it is. I think it's a win-win for everybody.
And this is not the first time that the county has agreed to support businesses.
No, in the
With the similar
13 years I've been here, we've been offered this type of program one other time. So this is our Kent's second opportunity to take advantage of the state program.
And it's also going to rely on our 301 corridor area where we're envisioning the growth taking place, which is much better than in the middle of Kent County in a farm field.
Yes.
So I just see it as a totally win for Kent County. And if you can go find us 2 or 3 more of these projects, we'll take them too.
Thank you. I'll try.
What was the first one, Jamie? Just out of curiosity.
Dixon,
Dixon.
the retention of the 350 jobs, I believe it was at the time. And I will share that they have far exceeded their requirements, and Commerce, in talking with Finance, had expressed that they may release that early because they far exceeded those numbers. But we're still waiting for official notification of
If
that.
that's what sets the standard, we should be in good shape.
Yes.
And we also believe that these are just not minimum wage jobs.
They are not.
Potentially, they're higher than that.
Yeah, I believe they start at 17 or 20, I can't remember exactly, but they come with full benefit packages as well. So these are full-time jobs and careers for folks to move up. What I was amazed by most when I went to the Avail facility, the one in Queen Anne's, it can cost them $500,000 just to transport one of these enclosures to a job site. And it's a massive undertaking. But, with energy and data, expanding the need for energy and data, their business has the potential to grow exponentially over the next 10 years. So, I feel like this could just be the start of them expanding into Kent County.
Very good.
And just to reiterate, it is a pledge of $20,000, but we're not requesting contingency to be tapped into, because it won't be prepared and ready to go out the door until FY '26, so this will be included in the FY '26 budget process.
And you just can't speak about with that $20,000 investment. I mean, if you get 45 people and a business working in there, that's a no-brainer. You'll recoup that in no time. I think that's a real plus for Kent County, and especially utilizing a vacant building that's perfect, is my opinion. Very good. So, any other questions?
I think we've said it all.
So I'd like to make a motion to approve and sign the letter of intent for incentives for Avail to include a MEDAF conditional loan, which requires a 10%, which is basically $20,000 local match that will be addressed potentially in 2026 budget.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, the ayes have it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And again, if you find a couple more of these, come back and talk to us.
Okay,
We'll,
thank you.
especially one that might hire an old 74-year-old man, retired guy,
I'll keep my eye out for that.
the qualifications can't be very high, though. I mean,
And he's got to have all summer off.
McDonald's is hiring.
well, President Trump did it. I guess that's good enough for him, it's good enough for me. Mr. Jim Miller, Human Resources Director, talking about senior staff employment contract.
Yeah, we have 2 items. Good afternoon, everyone. Rachel, I think everybody knows Rachel Morlock from my office. We have 2 items for you today. The first is one additional employment contract. Everyone signed contracts last year, new ones, updated ones. And for this year, we have one additional one. You have the documents before you. Same language as the contracts that President Fithian signed last year. Just one additional person to add to that group. The contracts automatically renew annually unless there's changes requested or approved by the commissioners. Rather straightforward document.
So there are no revisions to the new contract.
No, sir, no. And I believe
I've reviewed.
Attorney Yeager reviewed the document that we
Right.
put together last year.
Simply, this inserts the job title and the salary and the person's name, but the terms and conditions are consistent with the existing employment contracts for senior staff. And this document has been approved at a prior meeting, and it's gone through legal review, and Jim's reviewed it. So I think we're okay here.
Any questions?
No, that was my only question.
Then I entertain a motion.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the attached employment agreement and for calendar year 2025.
Second.
I got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you very much.
Once you've signed it, then I'll get it to the party, have her signature, and we'll keep it on file with the others.
Very good.
Second item that you have is a request for a conditional offer of employment. I have Rachel with me. She's that department's representative and handled the recruitment and the interviewing in case there was any questions that you might have. All the documents are before you, the application, and there was one other candidate that was considered at the time. If there's any questions about the candidate, Rachel will answer them.
Any questions, gentlemen?
Well, not that we can do anything about this, but in looking at the application prior to this meeting, the employee application, it appeared that there had been a lot of jumping around for different reasons, but I'm hoping that doesn't become a practice.
No,
It'd be
understood.
nice to maintain the employee in that position. Certainly, she looks like she's qualified. So-
We actually do pay attention to that. It used to be kind of more of an issue in past part of my career, where if you saw a lot of movement, you started to wonder. But in today's world, Gen X, Gen Z, Gen Beta A, whatever they're calling the latest group, it's anticipated that folks will move 7 to 11 or 12 times over the course of their career. So it's become less of an issue, and what's become more prevalent in the review is the quality of the work that they have performed, where else they've been, that we have focused on. But we absolutely do pay attention to it.
No
Yeah,
questions?
no questions.
No.
The cabinet looks qualified, on paper is qualified.
Well, then I would like to make a motion to approve a conditional offer of employment to the recommended candidate. And I'm assuming that there will be a drug test completed before.
Yeah, once we get the approval for the conditional offer of employment, then we can proceed with the pre-employment drug test and fingerprinting, all that process. But that all happens after this board gives us the permission to move forward.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you very much.
One
Thank you,
other
gentlemen.
thing, Jim, before you leave, and I just would like to ask that maybe you provide the three of us with, is I know that there was a survey that was sent out for the county holiday gathering party or whatever, and I've heard from a lot of the employees, some happy, some not. I would like to maybe have a chance to look at the results of that survey.
Yeah, that's actually
We
on
can
the
try to
plan.
address it, because what occurs on that particular evening is a direct reflection on the three of us. And we want to make sure that we're doing our due diligence to make sure that we're doing the right thing here.
That's been the plan. Actually, Rachel coordinated getting the survey put together and out. The deadline for people to provide comments is tomorrow. And we were at our staff meeting this morning. We were discussing the early part of next week. Rachel will be able to gather all the data that's come in on the surveys so we can produce a report for you all. That's absolutely the plan.
Does it appear you're getting a fairly good response from employees?
Yeah, it's
They were taking a little bit of time to respond, but they're slowly trickling in. So once I receive that, I'll put everything together and make sure that we share it with you guys.
Well, I know that we appreciate our employees very much because they all do a wonderful job for the most part, and we want to make sure that we're fulfilling our obligations. So if you could share that with us at some point, I'd appreciate it.
We're well over 20% of the entire employee population who've responded, but we sent it to everyone who did and did not attend the event because we wanted to get a sense of the folks who didn't come as to why maybe they didn't show up. So over a 20% response rate's a pretty good number in general. And, we have some more coming in, as Rachel mentioned. So we'll have, I think, some fairly reliable data to share with everyone.
You said tomorrow's the deadline?
Yes.
Maybe, Rachel, if you could just send a reminder email maybe for a last push.
I think one went out, didn't you send one out last week?
I'll have to double check.
Yeah, I think there was
With
one
the
that
snow
went
days and the holidays, my days are all mixed up, so.
Yeah, for all of us. But yes, absolutely. And that was the whole idea of doing it. And we sent it, I think last year, I'm not sure it went to the folks who didn't attend. I think we narrowed the focus to the folks who actually were at the event. And for this year, we broadened that because we wanted to get a sense of folks who weren't able to be there or chose not to be there. We did exclude from that denominator the folks who were working that night. We didn't want to skew the data in any fashion. But everybody else got access to participate in the survey.
Thank you.
Very good.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
We have this, Shelley, we've got 3 items here for us.
Correct. So the first item is a citizen request. There is a letter that was submitted expressing concerns about water and sewer rates. We definitely hear and sympathize with those types of complaints, and we share those with the Public Works Department. But there's a letter enclosed in the packet acknowledging receipt of the letter. Second, it is my honor to introduce Mr. Robert Bell, the Executive Director of the Kent County Public Library. So if you'd like to come forward, I can present the item, and then if you have any questions for Mr. Bell, feel free to jump in. But 2 of the trustees' terms have expired, and they cannot be reappointed due to term limits. 2 new candidates have been identified and submitted for your consideration.
So Shelley, before we hear from Mr. Bell, do you want a motion on the letter that is?
You could do a motion for the letter.
I'd like to make a motion to sign the in-kind response letter addressed to the resident as drafted.
Got a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second, all in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, the ayes have it. Very good. Mr. Bell?
Thank you for joining us today.
Happy to be here. Nice to meet all of you.
Nice to meet you.
Pardon my cold.
Is the season.
It is the season, that's certainly true. I took part in a open search to fill the 2 expiring Board of Trustee member positions. And after the search, we put forward 2 names, Ms. Clara Rankin and Ms. Deborah Westerland, for 5-year terms for Board of Trustees expiring December 2029. So.
They're the ones that are expiring.
No, Jay Silcox and Amy Sines expired, the terms expired.
okay.
But Ms. Rankin and Ms. Westerland are the new names we're putting forward to replace them. Apologize for confusion.
Then, any questions? Then I'll entertain a motion.
I'd like to make a motion to appoint Claire Rankin and Deborah Westerland to serve on the Board of Library Trustees for a 5-year term ending December 31st, 2025. Wait a minute.
Actually, that's an error.
That's 2030, I guess.
2029.
2029.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, the ayes have it. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Can I ask you how I've met you once before when we had the dedication of the branch in Rock Hall, the library down there. And you were pretty new at the job, if I recall. How are you? Things working out for you? Are you getting your feet underneath of you? And
For the most part, it's a lot to learn. but things are going well. I have a wonderful staff and really supportive community, so it's a great place to be.
Very good.
Thanks for being here. And I
Thank
appreciate
you.
everyone's support.
Nice to have you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thank you.
And we have, then we have the Martin Luther King proclamation. Should we read that here?
It would be lovely if you did. This is an annual proclamation that we make, and it
Yeah.
is presented at the breakfast.
Is someone here to receive?
No,
Okay,
unless somebody snuck in when I wasn't looking, no.
so we will read it, and then we'll leave it at the office for someone to pick it up.
This is a proclamation. Revered Dr. Martin Luther King, living the dream starts with me, dated January 20th, 2025. Whereas Martin Luther King Jr. was born on January 15th, 1929, and in 1983, President Ronald Reagan signed a bill making Martin Luther King Jr. Day a federal holiday. As a result, Americans commemorate Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s birthday on the third Monday in January of each year. And whereas Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s accomplishments as a clergyman, Nobel Peace Prize recipient, and author, and advocate for securing the enactment of the 1964 Civil Rights Act, the 1965 Voting Rights Act, and the 1968 Fair Housing Act, emphasize the principles of equality as a cornerstone of our democracy. And whereas, on August 28, 1963, Reverend Martin Luther King Jr., from the steps of the Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C., shared his dream with all Americans that all people can live and work together as one in I Have a Dream speech. That will forever inspire the victims of unfair discrimination. Now, therefore, we, the County Commissioners of Kent County, Maryland, do hereby proclaim January 20th, 2025 as Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s Remembrance Day in Kent County, and will join in the Minaries Dream Alliance Incorporated, Washington College, and the Kent County NAACP to honor the memory of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. on this day. Signed, the County Commissioners of Kent County, Maryland, Ronald H. Fithian, President, Albert H. Nickerson, Member, and John F. Price, Member.
Very good. We have, Shelley, you have two or three more issues here?
Sure, these are just report out items. First is Commissioner Fithian, President Fithian has signed the estimated expenditures report for, which is a required piece of documentation for the police protection grant for the sheriff's office. And this was signed on December 17th, 2024. And secondly, letters were sent to each of the municipalities for a work session to be held on February 11th, 2025 at 3 p.m. And this is to discuss budgetary matters to include municipal tax set-off. This is standard. We hold this meeting every year as part of the budget process. This is a little earlier than we usually hold it, but holding with the annotated code of Maryland, this falls within the guidelines.
Very good.
That's all I have for you today.
And then we have some, it says letters or documents for signature for these different boards. I had did we, over to Holly, did we ever, were we able to get something straight with that pier down at Little Neck Farms?
Oh, gosh, you're taking me back. Yes,
Did they bring a letter, a release letter?
a
in?
release letter was sent, the last I heard, a release letter was sent to the homeowners association. I have not heard back whether or not it was submitted back to the county, but it's very possible that it was. Again, there've been some illnesses and there's been staff that have not been in the office, so.
I'm going to take a minute and explain to
Sure.
my colleagues what I'm talking about. This is one of those issues where this community pier, and I think Tom would probably remember,
Yes.
has heard about it, but as a community pier, they had just rebuilt the whole, the pier, put it all brand new. for something, some type of an electrical module of some type which wasn't needed until about 6 or 7 months ago, now becomes law, and they couldn't get permission to turn the electric on to this pier until they got this piece. And they ordered it, and they're not making it in mass production enough for them to be able to get one. So there's been a law passed of which they can't abide by because they can't get the thing. They know that it's been ordered for 2 or 3 months, maybe 4 months now, and they can't receive it. The problem with that, the inspector, it's in the book that he can't approve it to turn the electric on till the pier, till this module's in place. But the problem with that is, this type of weather, they'd like to put their ice eaters around the pilings to keep from having their piers destroyed. And so they called me and I said, well, and I talked to Shelley, and I think that the message I got back was if they gave a release that they weren't holding us responsible, we would let them go ahead and turn the electric on so they can, because the electric's already out there, it needs to flip a switch, and then they can put their ice eaters in
Correct.
place.
And I think we even had a draft of a release for them that
has
was
been
acceptable for that. The only comment I had is they should have some type of insurance or pot of money in case there is a problem. They have the ability to indemnify us if need be.
Right.
But I would think that they would have insurance, or they could get insurance if they don't.
Well, I can tell you, I've been around the waterfront a lot of years, and I've seen some boats catch a fire. I don't know that I've ever seen a pier catch a fire. But what I have seen is in winters like this, when your tide's low, the ice freezes around the pilings, and then the tide comes up, it brings the pilings up, which snaps the stringers and tears the pier up. I would hate to think that we would sit around and allow something like that to happen. That's just a little bit of common sense that
Right.
needs to be applied to a law.
Yeah, and we
When you
approved
can't,
the
they
release.
pass a law that you can't abide by, but then your property becomes damaged because of it. I would hope that's not gonna be the case.
And I assume as soon as the manufacturing companies that produce said module catch up with the backlog of the new law, that this won't be an issue
Right.
going forward.
Well,
But
that's
they
true.
passed
This
the
was
law.
only gonna be in place until
Right.
these parts are available,
But
but.
I saw the
Exactly.
release, and
Yes.
I was good with it.
Yes.
I don't know what happened.
Well, I
to it
never
after
heard
that.
either.
I know it went to the homeowners association, but honestly, I don't know if it came back or not, only because we have had, a lot of staff has been in and out due to illness. So it very likely has come back, and
Okay.
the loop just hasn't been closed with me yet.
Very good.
But I do recommend that they indemnify and hold us harmless if we do this. That way they can get the electric, but we're not on the hook if there's a problem.
In the very beginning, they were, they weren't even allowed to keep their boats there. They were having to to put their boats at a marina someplace and pay rent because of this part that wasn't available. Anyhow, I'm glad to hear that maybe it's took place.
Is this a pier that's maintained by the county, or is it
No.
maintained by the
No, this
homeowners?
is-
By the community association.
But they had submitted for a permit for all of this, so it had to be inspected by the inspector. So it's not our pier, it's not our responsibility, but the inspector couldn't approve use of the pier until this was taken care of. And by law, I mean, our agreement with the company that we use for inspections is that they adhere to the building code. So all he was saying is I can't approve it as is. So because of the extremely rare circumstances that we've found ourselves in, we have found a temporary workaround until this module does become available.
Because I called the inspector, and he said, Ronnie, look, he said, up until 6 months ago, it was perfectly legal like it is. He said, I agree with you wholeheartedly, except my job is to do what the book says. He said, you all can make some changes, and he advised about the release or something, but this letter of release, but that was just something different than what we're used to. But anyhow, I hope it's, and then, when is contractor's supposed to be redoing Bayside Landing. Do you know whether that started or
So
not?
they had a pre-construction meeting on Friday.
Okay.
And they were supposed to be there Monday, and I don't need to tell you what happened
No,
on
absolutely. You're-
Sunday night into
absolutely.
Monday. So it should be next Monday, this coming Monday.
And I got a call, my last thing, got a call from you about the resolution that Queen Anne's County's putting in about the Conowingo
Correct.
dredging project up
Yes.
there. And you asked, I've supported that for years, so personally, myself,
Okay.
I'm good with it. My colleagues are good with it.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Okay,
Then,
we'll get it on an upcoming agenda.
Very
and
good.
Get that underway.
Only about 30 years, 40
Yeah,
years too
right.
late.
30.
Yeah.
now that comes the time for the public comment and media review. And we have Mike Wolf. Anybody know Mike Wolf?
No, I don't see him.
Not here?
Not here.
Mike Wall, they say he's from Chestertown, and he wants to talk about a notice of the tax assessment increase. Oh, here he is. This must
Thank
be,
you, sir.
this must be him.
Appreciate it, thank you.
You're welcome.
So everybody got their notice of tax assessment increase, and being a math guy, I did some calculation here, and I'm concerned, narratively wise, I'm concerned about Kent County homeowners. The 12% that are in the poverty level, those that are working and living paycheck to paycheck. I've got 3 pages of handouts. The first one, Exhibit A, which Tom will appreciate, my calling it Exhibit A. This is the actual chart that came
Actually, call
out.
it Exhibit 1.
I didn't hear him.
Exhibit 1.
Exhibit 1. This is the chart that the Department of Asses and Taxes came out with, and this is, on a by-county basis, the residential, commercial, and combined increase over the 3-year period, 3 fiscal year period that the tax assessment addresses. And if I'm being redundant, I apologize, but I came across the chart, I found it, and I felt that you guys needed a copy of it. If you already had it, that's great. If not, you've got it now. I did a little sorting of information, and that's page 2, Exhibit 2. And it's the middle chart and the chart to the right. We're kind of lucky because we were the 19th highest cumulative increase in terms of the assessments. And what I'm looking at here is just the residential impact. The residential impact, according to Department of Assessment and Taxation, was 20.8%, but commercial was only going to increase 4.9%. So really, the new tax assessment, the real estate tax assessment, really impacts residential homeowners the most. So these 2 charts, or these 2 columns, is just keying in on residential properties. So we were kind of lucky because Somerset, Washington, Wycombe, Worcester, in a declining sorting here, they really got whacked. We are 19th highest or 19th lowest, depending upon how you want to look at this, at a 20.8% increase in residential assessments over a 3-year period. The column on the right-hand side, I just added in there, and I know that you guys already know this, and girls, is that Kent County has the 7th highest real estate tax rate in the state. Baltimore City is in a zip code all their own, but pretty much everybody behind us is significantly less, and that's just for information purposes. The really essence of my presentation here is the next page, Exhibit 3. It looks complicated, but it's really quite simple. I've got rows and columns, and I'm going to go through this so that I don't miss anything. and if you have any questions, I know that you'll ask. So we know right now that Kent County's revenue source, main revenue source is real estate taxes. And for fiscal year 2025, it's going to be $35,885,000. That's going to increase combined with the residential and commercial assessment increase. That's going to increase by 19%. And that increase is just about $7 million worth of additional revenue that the county could make on the backs of homeowning taxpayers. That's what this amounts to, if we don't change anything at the current tax rate. So the revenue is comprised, the real estate tax revenue that we get is there's two parts to that component. One is the income tax rate, which you folks control, and the other is the assessment, which Annapolis Circus controls. And that's what just hit us, is the assessment.
Mike, I have a question. On the first page, on Exhibit 1, you are comparing, or SDAT has compared January of 2022 to January of 2025. So this has already gone into effect.
You got a taxes, everybody should have received.
Right, but it's not, from this point forward, it's already having gone into effect. If it's
It's going to be
22.
fiscal year, July 25.
Right.
Yes.
So from 22 to 25, not from
They
25
were,
to 28.
yeah, they were making a comparison here. All they're doing is, this is not my chart, this is the Department of Taxation's chart. And so, yeah, they were
So
saying,
2 of those years have already gone into effect.
which
It's
is the
just
3-year
third.
cycle.
Okay, so I would like to point out that right now is a really good time for a public service announcement for the homestead credit. If you are a primary owner, this is your primary residence, you can apply for a homestead credit so that your taxes only can go up 5% per year. That locks it in. So if, let's say you bought at a really good rate and you're paying taxes at a really good rate, and in your area of the county, it goes up significantly higher than 5% per year, they're locked in to only increasing at 5%. And it's also a nice time for a plug for the homeowner's property tax credit. So if you can qualify for that, we have the application on our website, and you can access it that way. And as well, the
And is that
Commission
limit
on
up?
Aging.
Sorry to interrupt, but is that limit 30,000 now?
I think it may be. I think you're right
It
about
started
that.
out at
25, 20.
maybe even
25.
20, and
I
then
think
it
it may
went
have
to
started out
25,
at
and
20.
then went to, I think it's 30. Anybody that makes less than $30,000 a year doesn't pay property tax if they apply for this homestead tax credit.
So, and if you need help filling out those forms, Commission on Aging has done a really good job of educating themselves, and
I mean, there's a little bit more to that, too. You can't
Right.
be sitting on $500,000
Right.
in
Oh,
your bank
right,
account
exactly.
and not making
Exactly.
$30,000 additionally. It's got to be, if you make less than $30,000 in a
Right.
year, and some of the other things you have to,
Right. And that's good you did that, because they talk about it on the notice. And the application for it is on the back page. So anybody that got their notice, just read it through, and you'll see and they've got all the contact information, tax credit. You may be eligible for your principal residence if your gross income is $60,000 or less. $60,000 or less.
that's not for our homeowner's property tax.
not for Kent County. Is that?
No, this is property tax credited exemptions.
Right, so, but what we actually officially call homeowner's property tax credit is, I'm pretty sure it's 30, it might be 35, I think it's 30.
And it only applies to Kent County taxes.
Correct.
Where you get hit hard is, let's say you have a second property, perhaps a property that's used for a small business,
Right.
an office, and that's not capped, so that just goes up and goes up and goes up and goes up.
Right.
I also think it's important to, that we understand the fact that in February, we will be receiving the updated taxable assessed value of properties that has not been released yet. So the gross versus the net almost. as a metaphor, rates, we won't know until February, but Pat will bring those numbers forward to you during the budget process.
On the notice of assessment, it specifically says what your market value assessment will be as of January 1st, 2025. This is what the tax will be applied to, and they spell it out pretty significantly. And if you do the math, it comes out to about 21% increase in your assessment, in the value of.
Each,
No, just over the 3-year period. It's, and then they divide it by 3 to implement it over the next 3 years, because we're in that 3-year cycle. That's why it's January 2022.
Correct.
The 3-year cycle is now, and that's when they revise all of the assessments.
There's a 3-year cycle, and SDAT is very familiar, our local SDAT office, as well as obviously the state, but they could go into exactly how those numbers are derived.
So what I did, that we want a constant yield of revenue for the county. Do we really want it, do we want it to go up $7 million over the next 3 years? Do we have a need for that? I don't know if we do or not, but it's on the backs of taxpayers, and everybody has said we don't want to increase taxes. That is true, but this assessment, it doesn't raise the tax rate, but it does raise the amount of tax homeowners are going to pay.
sure.
It's-
If we
it's-
don't, if we wanted to, we could reduce the tax rate, is
Exactly.
what you're
Correct.
saying.
And
Yeah.
that's what I'm getting
That's
at.
why you're
That's the whole
sitting in the
point.
chair that
That's
you're sitting in.
exactly right.
Mr. Wall.
Right.
That's my bottom line here, but I want to go through the math to justify it. So I used an example here, a residential example, where a residence has a current, today, assessment of $350,000. That's just about the average within Kent County. If you take a look at $35 million, which is the projected annual revenues, and divide that by 1.022 cents, you get $351,000. And you got to remember, I don't know the exact ratio of residential to commercial, but most of our money comes from residential. And so that's heavily weighted towards residential. And that's why I did this calculation. Under column B, so that $350,000 assessed property, when we apply our current tax rate of 1.022 cents, that property is going to have a tax bill, which is pretty damn close to mine, $3,577. And if we're talking about a constant yield and keeping everything on a par, we want to make sure the taxpayers pay that much in the next coming years, unless there's some need to raise revenue that the county needs. That's our goal, is to keep the tax bill for residential properties at where they are now, under the current assessment and current tax rate. This particular property that has an assessment of $350,000, so the assessment is going to increase over the 3-year period, a total of 20.8%. That's $72,800. And this is just an example. These numbers are accurate, but only if it's applicable to a $350,000 assessment. When you divide that by the 3-year cycle, each year, the person's assessment, or that property's assessment, is going to come up $24,266. That's each year, because they divide it by 3. They divided it by 3. If you take a look at your notice, they divided it by 3 years equally. It's right on the notice. So this property, for fiscal year 2025, 2026, the assessment is going to increase from $350,000 to $374,000. If we apply our 1.022 cents tax rate to that person's real estate tax bill, the amount of money that they're going to pay, increases to $3,825, an increase of $248, or, put it another way, they've got to put $20 a month away, approximately, round numbers, $20 a month away to pay their tax bill. It's really not too bad the first year. This is the first year of implementation. We come down to the second year of implementation. The same $24,266 increase on top of the $374,000 new assessment. Now the person's assessment for fiscal year 26-27, their appraised, or their assessment increases to $398,000. That's column G in the second section. So their assessment is increased at just under $400,000. If we apply the 1.022 cents tax rate, their tax bill is going to be over $4,000. And it's going to be almost a $500 increase, to the point that they've got to put just about $40 away per month in order to pay their tax bill. And then the third year is the real whammy here. Again, it's an additional $24,266. Their assessed value under column G, their assessed value increases to almost $423,000 from the $350,000 that it is now. If we apply the 1.22 cents tax rate, they've got a tax bill of $4,300. Now they've got to put $60 a month away to pay that tax bill. 60 times 12 is $720. It's a $740 increase on a by-year basis. What I have done in each section is to show the commissioners, in order to get a constant yield to equate to $35,885,000, what the decrease in the tax rate would have to be in order to maintain this person's $3,577 tax bill. So after the first year, where the assessment increased to $374,000, if we reduce the tax rate from 1.022 to 0.9557, that comes out to $3,577. The next year, fiscal year 26-27, where the assessed value is now $398,000, if we apply a reduced tax rate of 0.8975, the person's tax bill is $3,577, exactly what they're paying now. And then the last year of the phase-in, where their assessed value is well over $400,000 now, if we reduce the tax rate to 0.8460, that person is paying $3,577, the same amount of money. Their tax bill will be the same as it is right now. And the amount of money that the county makes hasn't changed. Even though we're reducing the tax rate, it's against a higher number. So the $35,885,000 will be a constant yield. You guys always talk about a constant yield. It will be the same, unless we see a need to increase it, but it will be the same by reducing the tax rate against the higher assessed value of the house. Everybody with me?
Oh, well, absolutely, and that's what we used to have to do years past.
Yeah,
When
we
the
did.
assessment would go up and we left his tax rate the same, we had to publish it in the Kent County News in great big letters that we raised the taxes, because we didn't reduce that tax rate
That's
to make
correct.
up for the
I remember that.
the additional advancement of the assessment. But I think they've done away with that the last couple of years. We didn't
That
have
has
to do that.
changed.
Right.
If we don't do
The way it
anything,
was done too was confusing, the way the
Yeah, it
state
was.
mandated it.
Right, because the rate itself didn't change, and we got a lot of feedback
if
saying
you
the
decide to
rate-
do nothing,
Right.
leave the tax rate the way it is, and it gets applied to these ever-increasing real estate assessments over the next 3 years, it's $7 million into the coffers, into the revenue that the county is going to receive, but it's on the backs of homeowners,
Well, it's
tax-paying
all on the backs
homeowners.
of homeowners.
Yeah,
It doesn't matter what it is, how it is.
right.
The 35 million now, the 50 million tomorrow, it's all on the backs of
Right.
homeowners. I mean, that's That's the constant.
I
is
know.
It's all on the backs of
It
us.
isn't always that they talk about state money and federal
And
money.
grants
It's
and-
all the same bucket of money.
Exactly,
We
exactly.
agree.
Gotta come from
We
somewhere.
absolutely agree.
I think this
So I'm presenting this, you can have Pat do the calculation, she's gonna come up with numbers that are pretty darn close to mine. But these are the tax rates that would have to be implemented to keep a constant yield and keep the amount of money that the county is generating in real estate revenue.
I think this is also a good opportunity for another public service announcement in that if you feel your assessment has gone up too much and you're assessed incorrectly, you can appeal that, and that is through our Kent County State Department of Assessments and Taxation.
I thought about that, and they've made this pretty ironclad because they got into the real estate values that they based this on. And so when you start looking at how am I going to word this appeal in 20 words or less, and looking at the comps that they took, their argument is pretty strong. Their argument is pretty strong here, and an
Well,
appeal.
and it's a fact that our property values have gone up
Have gone up.
significantly
I was gonna
here
say, I'm
in
gonna
the
But
state
part of that
of
was
I'm
Maryland.
going to
COVID.
solve your problem. I'll give you year 3 for your house right now.
My what?
I'll give you year 3 for your house right now. I just solved your problem.
That may come to fruition. Ronnie is 74, I'm 78. Okay, and I'm in my
God bless
12th year of retirement.
God bless
And COLA increases doesn't cover this,
Right. Yeah, I agree. Absolutely.
okay? I've been retired for 12 years now. And my increase in income
You're
is
putting an awful
COLA.
big strain on that social security too.
I'll tell you why. So when I've got to put $60 or more away per month, where do I get that $60 from? And I'm not just talking about me, this is.
No.
This
We're
is
talking
about the
everybody.
12% of
No, look,
our people that
we all
are
know
in the
it's gonna
poverty
make a
level.
di-
I
it's
know
all-
I'm
it's gonna
preaching to
make a
the choir here,
difference.
but it's worth noting here that this is going to affect a lot of people negatively.
No question about it.
So I'm presenting this to you to take under consideration to lower the tax rate so that we have a constant yield of revenue and take the burden away from an increase in tax bill of the residents of Kent County.
I'd like to make just a few comments for just the sake of making. Number one, we have the Kent News here. Mr. Kent News. I think it's pretty obvious that this is not the county commissioners that are doing
Right.
this.
This is not the
done-
county commissioners.
This is done by the state of Maryland. And we all know that the situation that our state is currently in. I also believe that this is not going to do anything positive for economic development or growth in our county. And it's certainly not going to encourage folks to pursue maybe new homes, building new homes and so forth. There are a fair number of teachers that live here in the county. There's a fair number of police officers and other public servant workers that live here in the county that struggle from day to day to make ends meet with their groceries and everything else. And, here, the blueprint wants to give teachers a pay increase. Well, guess what? The pay increase that the folks over in Annapolis thought were good for our teachers are now going to be paid to the state again for their tax assessments increase. I think it's worth at least asking Pat to take a look at what Mike has presented. I think currently, right now, Kent County is probably financially in better shape than it's been in a long time. But I think we need to be very, very cautious with our spending over the years to come. And I would like to maybe officially ask Shelley to ask Pat to take a look at Mike's numbers to see what can be done to lessen the burden on our constituents, our residents here in the county. I would love nothing better than to maybe consider what Mike is considering or presenting. But in order to do that, we're going to have to lower our rate. And it's pretty obvious, probably back to the 2010 numbers or 9 numbers.
Yeah, I forget the year, but it was .972, .975, Ron? At one time, our tax rate was .97 something. I'm
last
going
time-
probably back a dozen years.
The last time that we raised taxes in my time here of any amount was, I think, in 2008, when Governor O'Malley took our highway user money away from us, which totaled about $2.5 million. We lost at one crack. And
That's when we went from
And we went,
.972 to
we raised it
1.10.
5 cents.
Yeah.
We raised it 5 cents to, which really give us about $1.5 million. It didn't completely give us all that we lost, because 1 cent in Kent County is about $300,000. So we raised it 5 cents, at least enough that we could keep county roads fluid and operational, because we obviously can't do away with county roads. But they took $2.5 million away from us at one crack, promised we'd get it back. We got about 12 or 15% of it back. That's about it, and nobody talks about giving any of it back now. I mean, that year that I'm talking about, we were in financial trouble as well, because they took all that money away from us. We actually, in order to balance the budget that year, and I remember it very clearly, we actually took 2%. We reduced the salaries of all of our employees we had cut all we could cut and didn't know where else to get it. And in order to balance the budget, we reduced all the salaries in Kent County by 2%. The difference between what the state did and what we did, we promised them they would get it back as soon as we got ourselves straight, and we kept our promise. We give it back to them plus a raise that year. State promised us we were going to get our $2.5 million back, and we never got it.
I also firmly believe, and I believe that all three of us believe this, that the citizens of this county elected us to do a job. They are our constituents. And yes, you could sell your home to someone from maybe up north, and they would come in and buy it and think they were getting a good deal. And they probably are getting a good deal compared to where they are coming from. But our obligation is to the people that elected us to do this job. And yes, we want to support growth, but we also want to make sure that our citizens are able to live in Kent County. I know I have no intentions on leaving here, ever. But I may not have a choice down the road if this continues to be the situation. And I hate to see a lot of our young people who have built new homes, invested into the community, work in the community. I mean, this is going to have a domino effect in a negative way if we don't at least consider something to help soften the blow. And I'm not saying it has to go all the way back to the 2009 numbers, but there needs to be something to try to alleviate the extra burden that's going to put on our families here in the county. And I just would like to see Pat, number one, I know Mike's a number guy. I don't always trust his numbers, but I'm pretty sure they're probably pretty close to being right. But I would like for our financial department to take a look at it and just see if there is something that the commissioners can do to alleviate this burden that's going to be put on our constituents.
I would say Mike has nailed it with what you do. I mean, you look at, and we do this every year, and during the budget process, you look at the tax value, that's the assessable value, and then you determine the tax rate to find out how much money is coming in. But also, each property owner needs to do their due diligence, and if you haven't signed up for the homestead credit, sign up for it. The homeowner's property tax.
The ones that are qualified for it.
No, the homestead credit, everybody in the county does, as long as it's their primary residence.
Okay.
Your assessed value can only increase 5% per year under that. So, and you can look on SStat and see whether or not you have an application on file. And then if you do qualify for one of the other credits, definitely apply for it. And there are,
Don't worry, I will. I encourage everyone else to.
It's interesting
But when
because,
we, as Shelley pointed out, when we go through our budget,
Yeah.
works, I mean, we'll be spending 2 or 3 months going through that from beginning to end. We take a look at what we actually need, and then we decide, if we don't need as much as this represents, then we have the opportunity every year to lower the taxes. If we need more, we raise the taxes. Fortunately, we haven't substantially ever raised the taxes in my 27 years, but once, and that was 5 cents. Now, I know we raised it one year when, at last board, but then we turned around and
oh, I think it was just the opposite. I think we
Just, yeah, we lowered it.
one year and then
That's
raised
right,
it
and then we-
up the next year.
yeah, it was
But that-
crazy.
1 cent.
That's,
1 cent, but, I mean,
De
the only
minimis.
time that the assessments we've usually been able to go along with the assessments. Now, this is more, this is
Oh,
obviously a lot
this is
more,
huge.
so if we don't need it, if it's more than what the budget says we need and the project, we're certainly going to take a look at that tax rate
Thank
every
you.
year we do it. So it's nothing new, it's just, this
There
is
were
a
some
little
years
new
that
because
the
this is a
assessment
big
didn't go
jump
up
in
at all. I did
assessment.
I've been here 31, going on 32 years now, and I went back to all 31 years on a spreadsheet, which shouldn't surprise anybody. And there are years, multiple years, that our assessment, Linda and I, our assessment, because she's watching, our assessment hadn't changed.
Yeah.
It was constant for like during that 3-year cycle. It didn't change.
Right.
And then it sort of creeped up and creeped up. This increase is insanely huge.
Yeah,
This is insanely huge.
because they got an insanely huge problem over
Yeah,
on the other
$3 billion.
side, and it's not a coincidence.
No, it's
I mean,
not.
this is obviously a way to raise revenue without raising tax, without
Exactly.
correct.
saying I'm raising taxes.
Exactly.
So you raise the assessment and do it, and you accomplish it that way.
It's a tax
Now,
increase
I
in
would love to
disguise.
know how, of course, what that means. You talking about it means $7 million to little old Kent County. Well, I'd like to know what that means statewide.
I did a rough calculation based on data that I was able to pick off the internet, and it comes to about $200 million to the state.
That's it? I would have thought it would have been more.
No, well, because the state tax rate is .112 is the tax.
Yeah, something like
The
that.
state tax rate is not that great. But when you apply it to the 2.2 million homes in the state,
Yeah, I got it.
then all of a sudden it starts adding up quick. It's right about $200 million per year.
On top of all the fees, the 300 plus.
Plus the 338 fees,
that they
plus
raised
whatever else
last
they're
year.
going to do
Plus
now.
whatever else they're going to cut, and
Yeah. Yeah, Moore, as we were discussing before the meeting, Moore is going to present his budget in 7 days, and he's chopped $2 billion off of expenses. They
That's a
still
big
have a
lot.
$1 billion
I got to see
gap.
that, because
Well,
that's.
Yeah.
but what I mean, all of this, I couldn't agree with you more.
Thank
Okay,
you.
First and foremost, and I couldn't agree with my colleagues on us wanting to do what's right for the people that elected us. To play devil's advocate, sitting in this chair for 2 years, the first year we went to Annapolis, to beg for
Exactly what
money.
you're gonna say.
Beg for money, the first thing that I heard was, why are you over here? Obviously, you don't need money. You cut taxes last year.
By that 1
By
cent
1
we
penny.
were talking about.
So.
If our- go ahead.
So.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
So, I can assure you, this billions of dollars that our governor has cut means to us, we're already going to get less money for programs that we are mandated to do.
Middle school,
let me get there.
Yeah.
That we are mandated to do, and we're not gonna receive as much funding for those mandates. Not to mention, little things, like you just said, the middle school. I can assure you that as we cut taxes, the first thing out of their mouth is going to be, obviously, you don't need help. You're cutting constituents' taxes. I'm telling you,
No, you're
Mike.
exactly right. We heard it last year.
However, the
Several
rebuttal to
times.
that, and if the District 36 guys were sitting right here, this would be an easy debate. Because, yes, you're reducing the tax rate, but you're not decreasing the tax. There's a difference here. There's a
Well-
tax rate and there's tax dollars. So
But
you
it's
have
all
by-
money. It's all a lot of money. I mean, that's,
The argument can be made is
And-
that you are not reducing the amount of money, the amount of tax that taxpayers are paying. You have a constant yield. And
Mike,
they-
I'm not
and there's-
arguing. I'm not trying to be adversarial.
Yeah.
I'm not arguing with you.
There's another side of it he's talking about that we
right.
as commissioners have to deal with when you talk to the state, because when they're all raising taxes and we lower taxes, they're saying you don't need any help at all.
Do you think that these guys, the District 36 guys who sit here and never come up to this desk, well, the last time they were here, they didn't come up to this desk. Do you think that they're not hearing about this right now?
Of course they are.
You bet. I haven't heard back from Jay, but you can damn well, best assured, I sent Jay a little email. I haven't heard back from him. But Steve Arntz, Jeff, Steve Hershey, they've all heard about this, without a
course.
doubt.
Well, they're gonna hurt, yeah, right, and I'm not saying I haven't heard about it. And having said all that I've just said, there are those of us in the audience that say, throw caution to the wind, what has the state been giving us to begin with? I mean, as far as like help for this middle school. But I am afraid, Mike, and I hope that I'm not, but I am afraid that if we do this, that I can assure you of this, where they're not even gonna let us in the offices that we got in these last couple of years. When we go to ask for help for like these the middle school and stuff like that.
I also feel
I have an
as though-
opinion about that, too. And I don't mean any
you're fine.
disrespect to anybody. But, we have our legislature, which does the best job they can do. But in the 2 years that I've been sitting here, and this was before any tax reduction or decline or whatever, I don't see where Kent County's getting a hell of a lot.
Well, that's what I was saying.
And that was even during the better times. I mean, I wish it was better, and look, I know they try hard, I'm not being critical
They're
of
just
them,
outnumbered, that's all.
but they're outnumbered, and if you look at these assessments, there's particular areas of the state, mainly the Western Shore and the Eastern Shore, that are being hit the hardest. Wonder why that is.
I can't imagine
But to play-
Somerset County right now.
But to
No, I
play
can't
devil's
either.
advocate to that, I would say that somebody from the state would say, look at the market values. What are the houses selling for?
The response to that is, that all happened during COVID, when people were looking to move out of cities,
But-
move out of.
But it
not
doesn't,
stop.
it doesn't matter why.
That's not stop.
It's just a fact.
Also, there's not a lot of activity, and when there's not a lot of activity, that skews the market, because you have a couple of sales that will affect others. And you need a lot of activity to get a good
But
cross-section.
the reason we're not having a lot of activity is because we don't have the inventory,
Correct.
which by the very nature of supply and demand is gonna drive prices
Price
up.
up.
So our properties are worth more money.
Right, but the whole problem with all this is that for people that have no intention of selling their
ever
house.
moving.
People that, this is where they live, they have no intention
their
of moving,
home.
this is their home. It really doesn't matter what that assessment is.
Provided you can
Pay.
You can absorb it.
You can absorb it. Your house could be worth all this, but you're not gonna realize that because you have no intention
That's
of
exactly
selling it.
I
So you
bet
just get hammered by
I
these
bet it's
things.
gonna slow that Airbnb business up too. People from up north or anywhere buying a home down here thinking that they were gonna get half of it paid for by renting it out on weekends and stuff, and then I don't think it'll be good statewide for an
Correct.
increase like
Right,
this.
it slows economic development, because if you have a building that you don't live in, you get the full freight of the tax increase.
Oh, yeah, you
Correct.
don't get any breaks if you own one of these second homes.
Correct.
Right. But if you are a primary resident, the way to protect yourself, again, I'll say
That
my
tax.
public service announcement here, you need to find out whether or not you have a homestead application on file or
Yeah.
not.
So I guess my next question for you, Shelley, is I know there's a specific time that the county has to act on either lowering or raising taxes.
Correct.
Do you know what the date on that is?
Oh, gosh, it's late May.
Late May.
Yeah, we've got plenty of time. During the budget process, it's usually either the last or the second to last budget work session when we have to know so that we can give proper notice.
Advertisement and stuff, we gotta be
Correct.
done in time to advertise it properly and everything, and it leaves us in making our final decisions in
That's
May.
right.
Latter part of May.
I thank you very much for hearing me.
Thank you,
Thank you for bringing it to
as
our attention.
always.
Thank you.
Appreciate
Yes,
it.
Thank you for your hard work.
Can we get Pat to?
Oh, absolutely.
To take a close look at Mike's
Absolutely.
numbers and maybe?
Unfortunately, Pat couldn't make it to the meeting today, but she was looking forward to hearing
As we move
what
through
it
the
was.
budget process, I'm
This
sure
is,
we'll be
this
having
is
a
one of
work
100 conversations we'll have between now and the end of May,
Correct,
for sure.
at least.
All right. Anyone else? Yes, ma'am.
I came in too late this time, but
Okay.
If you could come forward, otherwise the
Come on
microphone.
up here.
this is just kind of off the record.
I know, but the microphone won't pick you
I
up.
just wanted to let you know where we are with the Shelter Alliance, just because you had a meeting a while ago in October with all the providers, and a lot's happening, but we still don't have a building. Okay, so yesterday we opened the shelter closet at the Kent Plaza, which was extremely successful opening. It's the former Hidden Treasures, and it's a store, and we're going to open it once a week for the public. They can get stuff for donation, and people who are in need can come and get one bag a week for free. So that's.
So, could you just put on the record, when can people donate? I'm sure people would be interested.
During that, it's been in the paper, the Spy, the Enterprise, and it's going to be in Kent County paper.
Okay, terrific.
Today, I think. I haven't gotten the paper
Okay.
yet, but anyway, so that's good. We have gotten additional funding to expand our emergency cold weather offerings from 3 days to 7 days on a case-by-case basis, and this would be people who do not qualify for the Samaritan shelter for whatever reason. If they refuse to go to the Samaritan shelter, then we're not going to fund them, but we can extend the funding. We also passed on our board that we will consider security deposits and down application fees, but we still have not found a house, an apartment since last February. So we're going on a year of not finding anything for anyone. The family of 5 continues to live at the Driftwood for a year and 8 months.
Wow.
Because we cannot find them a place. But,
To reiterate, property values are going up, which is
Well,
not making this any easier, right?
I know, and it's so funny because I'm a senior citizen, I have a mortgage, I am getting my hair cut at the barber shop, I am mowing my own lawn, I am cleaning my own gutters, I am washing my own car, and it's because I cannot afford my house. So what this person before just said, I'm one of those people, even though I may not look it, I have had to look at cutting every non-essential expense out of my budget to afford to stay where I am. My property was bought at 200, and I was told by a realtor, hi, I could sell your house for 380. And I'm like, really? So I'm just saying, I'm in that boat. It's really kind of interesting. But anyways, we have an upcoming brochure that will be out about the Alliance. And we're speaking to 2 groups, the church and the Democratic Club, coming up. And the biggest news is there is a potential for a full-time director on the horizon for this organization. We have, as you suggested, Mr. Fathian, we are working with the Family Promise model. We have a meeting on the 13th. We have attended the CVMA meeting and partnered with the Good Neighbor Fund and the local management board to fund someone additionally when our funding ran out. And we are working with the Samaritan Shelter. 2 of their people that were guests came up and they were the first people through the door and they got coats. Very expensive coats, by the way, from our store. But we have people right now who are willing to offer classes in financial counseling, eviction prevention, nutrition counseling, job training. We don't have a building. There's where we are. This has gone on, I'm on 2.5 years. My letter to, we did attend the Delegate 36 Christmas Gala. Linda Kuiper and I attended that. And they said, well, why are you here? We said, we're here about a building. And to which Mr. Jacobs replied, well, I kept that building that you wanted in Kent County. Yes, you did, but that's 1.5 years ago. So we're still there. I mean, all the pieces are in place.
Oh, good work so far.
Well, I know, but this is just where we are.
No, we.
And we are going to lose the people that we have ready to act because our mission is to provide a building for programs. Now, we are providing financial counseling at Play It Again Sam's and the public library, actually. So, I mean, we're doing all the things you suggested, and that is, it's working to some extent, but even to get a paid person, it's going to be hard to get a paid person without our goal, without a building on the horizon, because that's our mission. That's why we started this in the first place. So, I mean, I'm grateful for all you're doing, but you got to try to find us the building. So, thanks.
Thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
Keep up the good work.
We're trying, thanks.
If there's no one else, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed?